Yeah, I see. I always ask the question, would you, rather have a cannabis smoker living next to you, or would you rather have a rapist or a murderer living next to you? Who do you want free on the street? Because at some point, you're going to have to choose. You can't just lock everyone up.
Sure. I got a call one time, this is anecdotal, but a call from a medical student at the University of Chicago, and she said, I got your name from wherever, and she said, my father's in jail for growing marijuana. He's never done anything wrong in his life. He got sentenced, I forget how many years she told me, but 10 years, a long stretch. And she said, they're letting bank robbers and so forth out on probation and early release, and they won't let my father out because it's a drug crime. Even though he's never done anything wrong, he's 50 years old, whatever it is. And here's some medical student, this girl, couldn't make sense out of what doesn't make any sense. And I had to tell her, well, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Is it ridiculous? Yes, it's ridiculous. But that's what we've done because we've rewarded the politicians by them giving their get tough on drug speech.
Now, let me ask you this. Once you get to the point where you understand that it's not working and that something else needs to be substituted for the model that we're currently following, what are your suggestions? What steps can be taken? What models can be embraced that you feel would minimize the collateral damage associated with prohibition?
Well, the biggest thing that needs to be done is people need to talk to their friends, their neighbors, their politicians, their city officials, and let them know that they are not in favor of the war on drugs, that it doesn't work, that it causes what it was designed to prevent, and it's the heart of most crises in America. And they politically need to insist that people who are running for office are going to end this war on drugs, that are going to stop opposing medical marijuana, that are, we need models that we can use the states as a laboratory. Instead of having a national prohibition, let's say that, well, okay, drugs are still dangerous, so let's let the states regulate and control drugs, so that a state, maybe in one state we'll have a program like they have in Switzerland where a heroin addict can come to a doctor or a clinic and get a daily injection, a heroin maintenance program, which has reduced crime, addiction, death, overdose in Switzerland, and has now been replicated in many countries around the world. So that's a program that's been successful. Well, if the states had the freedom to put such a program in place, well, maybe Florida's going to say, okay, we're going to have a heroin maintenance program. And another state may say, well, we're not going to have a heroin maintenance program, but we are going to have legalized marijuana. Another state may say, well, we're only going to do medical marijuana for people who are sick and have serious illness. And so we can see what kind of response comes in these various states to see which protocol works the best. Is an alcohol paradigm, is that the answer? Is it an answer for certain drugs but not all? But the problem at the moment is we have a supremacy clause that says that the federal prohibition and federal law is supreme over state law. So that even in these states where we pass medical marijuana referendums, there's still an issue and the success is under a cloud because we don't know when the federal government is going to walk in, DEA come barging through the door and say, you're under arrest because it's still prohibited federally. So we need to get rid of the federal prohibition and permit the states to experiment with different programs. In the old days when we got rid of alcohol, some state legislatures said, well, alcohol is so dangerous, even though the national prohibition is still in place, we're going to continue prohibition. Other states said, well, people are consuming it, so we need to make it available, but we're not going to trust private industry. So we're going to have ABC stores, alcohol beverage control states. And those states basically delegated the authority to sell booze to a private company, but technically the state owns the business. And there's still about, I think, about 10 or 11 states in the United States that are ABC states, alcohol beverage control states. And really, it's not much difference than licensing. Other states put in place licensing programs where local municipalities have the power to issue so many licenses within the particular city or village, limiting the area through zoning where the outlet could be located. We're only going to have, we're going to have 2 retail places. We're going to have 2 lounges. The hours are going to be such and such. So the regulation of alcohol was delegated to the states and then to local municipalities, which has improved local control and has certainly at least improved the problems with alcohol, though that's even more dangerous substance than many of the illicit substances today, particularly marijuana.
Now, is there any legislation out there that is kind of petitioning to lift that national model, that national banning? Is there anything out there that you would like to direct our listeners to that maybe they can help move along?
I wish there were, but there's no. I'm sure that each year there must be some senator or representative that introduces a bill that says we should legalize marijuana or we should permit the medical marijuana. Those bills, I would think, are somebody must put them in the hopper, though nothing ever comes of them. But on a broader scale, we have people running for president now on extreme ends of the political equation that are talking about ending the war on drugs.
Yeah.
On the conservatives, Ron Paul on the conservative side, Republican side, and we have Dennis Kucinich on the liberal left-hand side. We have Gary Johnson, from former governor from New Mexico, who's talking about legalizing drugs and ending the war on drugs. There was a senator from Alaska, Senator Gravel, former, who was advocating an end to the war on drugs. So there's a handful of national leaders. Reverend Jesse Jackson in Chicago has called for an end to the drug war. The president of the Cook County Board has, in the last 2 months, called for an end to the drug war. The Secretary Kofi Annan of the United Nations has called for an end to the drug war. The Global Report on Drug Policy has called for an end to the war on drugs. The former presidents of Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico have called for an end to the war on drugs. President Paul Volcker, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve System, has called for an end to the war on drugs. The Secretary George Shultz, I believe under Reagan, has called for an end to the war on drugs. So people of all political stripes are telling the American people we made a mistake. The sooner we end this, the better. And it's a tidal wave that's coming that no one can stop. The drug war, I promise, will end, and the reason is the crises that come spewing out of the tub faucet caused by prohibition. When we turn on prohibition, the crises come pouring out. The cost of the crises are unaffordable, and it's because of the unaffordability for the first time, some of the state legislatures have reduced prison populations across the United States. 26 of the states have reduced their prison population for the first time. But federal prison population continues to increase, so the gross number, federal and state prisoners, continues to increase. But it's becoming unaffordable, so that will change, just as it is in the states at the moment.
Very good. I hope so, and I hope so soon. Again, I think you're right with that tidal wave analogy. More and more people are becoming educated, and I think the Internet has a lot to do with it. The fact that this is no longer seen as a taboo subject. It's definitely more and more open for debate and open for family members and colleagues to share the dialogue amongst one another. That's half the battle right there. When you don't have something being swept under the rug or something that is just too taboo to talk about, then things come into the light and you're able to open dialogue on the damaging effects. and people are able to see it then too.
Sure.
So
People have
that.
read in the newspaper for the last 40 years, day after day, of gang shooting, innocent kids shot in the crossfire, violence so bad some of the cities and villages want to call out the National Guard, and the building of prisons, the inability to pay for schools, more people overdosing, emergency room admissions are up. So people have seen the headlines, but what they're doing now, I think, is they're putting them together. They're coming up with a new set of rules and conclusions that have to be drawn from those particular facts, which they've seen over and over. They're just coming to a different conclusion, like William James's analysis of how beliefs change. They change because we believe certain things, and then the facts come along that are incongruous with which the things we believe, and so we have to modify our beliefs as what's good, i.e., what's a good drug policy.